Sounds going on. Hey everybody, welcome to Bitcoin and Altcoin Trading Talk. This is episode 13. Somebody's got like a TV on in the background or something, so I don't know who that
Yeah,
is,
we
but
should probably all go on mute while Will's
yeah,
talking.
mute it up a little bit. Welcome back, Bitcoin and Altcoin Trading Talk. William Keel here from Coinigy.com. Along with Rob from Coinigy as well, who just got out of his seat and must be going to get a beer or something. And as usual, we have Brian Beamish from The Rational Investor. How you doing, Brian?
Fantastic as always. Great to see you guys, and totally stoked about tonight's show. Oh man, we got so many cool things to talk about. Totally excited. I'll go
Yeah.
back on mute because if I don't, I'll explode.
Oh, was that you, Brian? It must have been. I don't hear
No,
it.
it was me. That's why I got up.
Oh, I
Well,
thought you
I
were
think
going
it
to the
was in,
fridge.
in my living room.
I thought you were
Yeah,
going to the fridge
cartoon
to
mode.
grab a tall bottle of Jim Beam or something to get through this. But no, so anyways, I just like ripping on Rob. It's kind of my favorite thing to do right now. So,
I don't know whether you can rip on him. He's looking pretty fun in that haircut.
he
Yeah.
is
Damn
looking
fine
pretty
looking
fly
guy.
for a white guy.
Party
Yeah.
in the bottle.
So yeah, tonight it's going to be a great show. We have a special guest for everybody. His name is Roy, also known as RTMoney, and he's with Gridcoin. How you doing, Roy? Can we call you Roy,
Fantastic.
or should we call you RTMoney?
You can call me Roy. That's fine. Everybody will find me online as RTMoney, though.
Cool, right on. So just a couple things we wanted to talk about in the news, and then we're going to jump into a little bit of Gridcoin discussion. Kind of going to do a quick Q&A with Roy and talk a little bit about Gridcoin and give us some fundamentals. I know on the last show we were going to talk about some Gridcoin fundamentals, and we skipped right into the technical analysis. So a couple people were peeved at us. They were tweeting at us, so decided to have somebody from Gridcoin on to really give us the scoop straight from the horse's mouth, so to say. So what's new in the news, guys? I heard there's something about Cripsy going on.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so if anybody hasn't, I'll give a little bit of my 2 cents, Brian, I guess, and then you can give your 2 cents. And
Well,
Rob,
you know what? I kind of like your story, so go for it. I think,
okay.
yeah, I like it.
Okay, so I'll give a little bit of a backstory. So earlier last week, I think it was, there's this website called coinfire.io, and let me share my screen here. So Coinfire, they released an article talking about federal investigations of Cripsy being underway. And this was pretty much a shot heard around the world. It was getting retweeted all over the place. I saw a lot of people jumping down Cripsy's throat. Cripsy actually came back and wrote on their official blog that the entire thing is false. We're not being investigated. We've never been investigated. At least by the federal government. I did see.
Can I ask a question? How long after that article was posted did they come out with that response?
I think it was like within 24, maybe 24 to 48 hours. It was pretty quickly.
Yeah, but that
Um,
was it, right? When that news hit, and I was in the chat room, and Tim Gravity, everybody on Reddit,
yeah, we know Tim.
yeah, everybody knows Gravity, right? He came into our chat room and posted it, and it was like a bombshell. And some of our guys, just traders, right? They're just like, hit the bid, get me out of here. Hit the bid, get me out of here. And they just fled. And like if it took 24 hours for them to come out with that response, man, a lot of damage was done in like the first like half hour, 45 minutes. So that's why.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean it's just the nature of these markets. They're unregulated. They're starting to somewhat become regulated, and any little allegation like this, I mean, any allegation in terms of KYC AML can really hurt an exchange. Any allegation, in terms of investigations can hurt them, and then any allegations in terms of hacking and security can really hurt an exchange. So whether they're true or not, too, which is kind of what I'm going to get into here. I read through this document, by Coinfire, and something kind of jumped out to me a little bit. So, you know, they claim that they have their hands on a cache of documents, you know, pertaining to an alleged investigation into Cryptsy. First of all, I find it a little bit suspect that why don't you just release the documents? I mean, if you have, what do you have to gain by holding on to them? You know, aside from maybe link baiting on another blog post or something. But one thing kind of jumped out to me here. So if you take a look at the way that they spell Cryptsy in this article, you guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of a pretty common mistake. I mean, it happens with Coingy as well. I mean, people will spell our site Coingy and they'll omit the I. You know, I don't know if anybody can see this, but they're spelling Cryptsy Crypsty. So it's not Cryptsy, it's Cryptsty. That's not how you spell it. You know, Cryptsy is Cryptsy. Now, what does that mean? You know, so what? They spelled it wrong in the article. Big deal. Well, if you search for it, they spelled it wrong throughout the article. And then they also spelled it correctly in a couple places. Now, big deal, until you look at the alleged document screen cap that they have. If you notice right here, they have Cryptsy at the bottom here, but it's misspelled. What does that tell us? These may potentially be photoshopped. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but from what I understand, the federal government, you know, dots their I's and crosses their T's when it comes to affidavits and serving companies and investigations. And I don't think they would make, coincidentally, the same spelling mistake in their official document as, you know, the blog itself. So does that really say anything? You know, you can take that for what you will. Just something I noticed.
When you also
Pretty
consider
interesting.
they put it right on the bottom, cut off, basically, so that it's harder to tell if it's been manipulated at all.
Right. I mean,
You know,
it seems
I
surprisingly
agree that
slightly.
it's pretty suspect.
Yeah, and I have, you know, I will admit I have a little bit of an eye for design and photoshopping and whatnot, and it looks slightly darker than some of the other text. It looks not as blurred. Like the R and the V look pretty sharp compared to, like the R over here is very blurry. A lot of stuff over here. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt or take it as what you will. But I'm not making any allegations. I'm just saying that this is what I noticed. So
How would a company? Is this a company? Is this an individual person? How would they benefit by smearing Cryptsy? That's what I'd be curious about.
yeah, I really don't know, but I do know that. First of all, I don't know who's behind CoinFire. I haven't done any research on it, but I do know that they had another article a while back, also nailing Cryptsy, and it was something to do with Paycoin, I think. So I don't know if CoinFire maybe is like associated.
That's mentioned in this article. I'm pretty sure if you search for GAW, you'll see it in there. I thought I saw it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah, right there.
I don't know who's behind this, but it could potentially just be somebody that has a bone to pick, or it could be a legit, you know, news source. But I will say, for a legit news source, they don't post a lot of articles. I mean, this is like, I don't know, one of only 3 in the last week versus, you know, if you look at CoinDesk, they're posting 5, 6, 7 articles a day and such. But I don't know.
Interesting. And you know, you guys have heard me say you can't write better fiction than reality, eh?
Yeah, I mean,
what an incredible turn in this soap opera. It's remarkable.
yeah, so I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
You know, all I can say from a trader's perspective, it was it's interesting. I talked to a gentleman, I guess, from Bitterix the other day, and he was, you know, and the general consensus in a lot of these chat rooms that I'm in was that Cryptsy does kind of questionable activities sometimes. And the general sentiment I heard from people was, oh yeah, well, it was bound to happen sooner or later. So I don't know, how that's going to play out. All I know is, and again, I sort of tout myself as an outsider. I'm not really, that computer smart. And so what ends up happening with a guy like me is I'm just sat here going, who can I trust?
Right, and
Mhm.
trust is everything. Trust is everything in these markets.
It sure
Definitely.
is. And that's the sad part about money, right? Money doesn't trust anybody. And like I said, I was shocked at that. Some of the people that I'm with, they've made some great money trading these altcoins. Their accounts are up substantially. So for them to just go along and liquidate everything on Cryptsy just to get the Bitcoin out of there, ironically enough, they're not really going to incur that much losses. And even if I lost everything, I mean, we've got maybe about, I mean, what's so cool is we've got this Coinigy page now. So you guys can see, I mean, I got a grand total of 0.1239 in Cryptsy right now. That was over 20. So you can see that whatever positions I had in Cryptsy, they've basically been cut in half. And it was incredible just to watch people just say, you know what? I don't even want to take a chance. Just hit the bid, get me the hell out. Just liquidate. Foosh, gone. And unfortunately, that's how money acts in this world. You remember, you've seen what's happened to Volkswagen in the stock market, right? I mean, I don't know whether the emissions allegations are true, or maybe years down the road we find out it's a smear campaign by BMW or whatever. But the first reaction traders and investors do is just get me out. I don't care, just get me out. So it was absolutely incredible to watch it. And what I've kind of noticed, and this is a bit dangerous for the altcoin community, and they really should respect this, is that can you guys appreciate that this has really cast a bit of a shadow across the altcoin market?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
sure.
I mean, anytime anything like this happens.
Yeah, and I've kind of seen the bids. You can literally see things sort of slowing down and kind of calming and sort of backing off a little bit. I mean, you can see our account. Basically, we were up there at 420 there, and then the Cryptsy news happened, and we've lost maybe about a tenth of a Bitcoin or maybe an eighth from Cryptsy action alone. But the rest, we've got like 60, 70 coins in here. So, and I actually was going through the list. I didn't really see any, standouts that were really getting hit. It's just sort of the bid has come off the altcoin market right now. So, it's because we have so many coins, this chart actually is not a bad sort of little proxy on how altcoins are kind of doing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
you're
that's
you're
pretty
running your
cool.
own index there, Brian.
Pretty much, pretty much. I mean, you can see all the colors of the rainbow, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, I have a hell of a lot of coins in my test accounts, but I've never seen the pie chart that varied. I'm impressed.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
And the coolest part about it, right, and it's so ironic, is that I'm sitting. The irony of it all is we started this with 1.25 coins. So technically, I mean, we've only been at this a year, so things are just marching along nicely. And I'm sitting, I got a nice big chunk of BTC. So, if I get a half decent idea at tonight's show, I could be a buyer in seconds. Right? More than I'm always in a position where I can pull the trigger. So.
Yep, that's the idea.
Yeah, so speaking of which, we have a guest on tonight, and I just simply missed this trade, and it sucks because in the midst of all this Cryptsy stuff, I go and look at our guest tonight. Go figure. I look at his chart, and it's going up like gangbusters, and it's the only Cryptsy I don't own. Crypto I don't own. So I'm kicking myself. This should be a really good lesson. And Brian, you got to pay closer attention to the charts. I think last week we talked a little bit about this one, and simply the fact that I can't buy it now because I missed the trade. But it's awesome that we have this guest on tonight because this story is hot. I mean, it is the focus of the market right now. I'll just throw this chart on here, to kind of set you guys up. But I got lots and lots of questions. This was the tweet that I put out today, and talking a little bit about our guest tonight. And I mean, you can see it where this, as I say in the chart here, higher highs and higher lows defines a bull market. Well, I tell you guys, we got a guest on tonight, and he's got a bull market. So I'm really excited to hear what he has to say.
Right on. So unless we have any other news, we should probably jump into there.
Without further ado, with that kind of intro, I think we have to.
Okay. I know there are people that want to talk about Gemini, so maybe I jumped the gun there, and I'm not very good at these videos.
We should definitely mention Gemini. That's a huge thing.
So I'm sorry, Roy. I totally built you up, but you know what that means is I get to build you up again.
There you go.
So yeah, Gemini.
Before we get going, do we want to talk a little bit about Gemini and what we should expect here?
Yeah, let's talk briefly. So first things first, Gemini is launching officially tomorrow morning. I believe at 9 a.m. Eastern. I could be wrong about that. 9:30 Eastern. We're fully set up to support Gemini tomorrow. So Coinigy will have high definition Gemini charts, pretty much live order books, trade history, everything you can see. And we've set up our API stuff in terms of trading. We haven't really tested the trading yet, so it's going to take, tomorrow during the day, we're going to be basically placing a bunch of test trades and, just working out any minor bugs, and then we'll be releasing that to all our users. So good to go with Gemini tomorrow. Kind of excited for it. We'll see how it goes. But how do you think that's going to influence the market as a whole, Brian? You seem to have some interesting ideas in terms of Gemini news.
Well, as you can see from the price chart alone, you can see that we're slowly kind of working our way higher here on Bitcoin. I'd be curious about all the different products that they're going to offer. Is it strictly Bitcoin? Are they going to be doing Litecoin, or do they have their own futures and derivatives markets?
So the only thing I've seen so far is Bitcoin US dollar spot trading.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So quite often in the stock market, of course, we get a buy on the rumor, sell on the news, right? So I might be a bit concerned that the actual event might be met with a lot of hoopla, and maybe price spikes a little bit here into that event, but I might be a bit concerned that might be a sort of sell the news kind of event. Yeah. So be cautious of that. I do also know that we have another U.S. government auction coming up here of Bitcoins too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So 44,000 Bitcoins.
Right. So the market likes to rally into those events as well. We've seen that happen a couple times now. So, put it together, maybe it's sort of a hodgepodge of both of these. On balance, as my sort of chart on the screen kind of illustrates, you can see how we're sort of trapped between 238.2 fibs. And it kind of looks to me like we still need to do a little bit of more of sort of, cleaning up this market. So, we can talk about my Bitcoin trading of late, and actually, we did before we started the show tonight. We kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about the fact that you can use Coinigy to trade Bitcoin perfectly well, and I've been trading away, so we might as well demonstrate a bit of that. I would be a bit concerned though that for the general viewing audience, let's try and always remember we don't want to get sucked into sort of public event euphoria. That's kind of asking for trouble. And if anything, one could argue when we look at, say, GRC, we can clearly see when we were supposed to be buyers. If you didn't buy then, well, that's your problem. You missed the trade. It's often very dangerous to come late to a trade and assume that you're still going to make money, right? So I'd be and then of course, if you have some sort of big event like Gemini and like this U.S. government auction, guys, let's just, temper our enthusiasm. I'll talk more about Bitcoin in a bit, but if anything, I would almost kind of want things to calm down a little bit after that news event. All right. I stopped talking there. You
Yeah,
guys
no,
never know when I'm going to
I
stop, do
didn't
you?
know if you were gonna continue there or what.
It came out of
Yeah, I
nowhere,
mean
Brian.
it'll be interesting to see. I'm really curious to see what kind of volume comes through Gemini.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
And
they're
what
going more
better?
for the
They're like itbit basically,
yeah.
except that they are actually offering like public services and a web interface. But
Well, I mean,
they're like registered as a banking license in New York, and
yeah.
they have basically insured accounts, and they're just doing the spot trading BTC USD, I think, at least for now. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. They probably have enough money to have made it liquid at least for now. But
Yeah, I could easily see, a little sort of love affair with the Winklevoss twins and the whole bit, right? You can almost see it sort of writing itself.
Hmm.
Um, all right. Well, I guess there was something else that I was thinking about, but it'll probably come to me after the show. But okay, I'll stop talking now. Really, I want to get to the main event here and our guest tonight. So, like I said, I'll go on mute. You guys set him up. I already set him up once. Now it's your guys' turn to set him up and go.
Okay. So now, without further ado, we have Roy from Gridcoin. How's it going, man? Are you okay? You're there. Great.
Yeah, I'm here. Great to be here. Thank you guys a lot for giving us the opportunity to kind of share our story through your podcast. We really appreciate it. So,
Yeah,
um,
definitely. Rob and I, somebody brought up that they wanted us to do technical analysis on Gridcoin before our last show, and that's really, I think, when Rob and I first heard of it. Other than I've seen the GRC symbol here and there,
right,
but really after kind of looking through your website and kind of seeing what you guys do, I think it's a great project. A lot of these alts right now are basically just quick money grabs or we'll have hidden pre-mines and all these, crazy things set up almost for failure. It's the idea is to grab a quick buck. But in terms of Gridcoin, it sounds like you guys have more of an altruistic purpose behind it, which, I can definitely get behind. I mean, I know the whole, I guess you can kind of call it mesh networking in terms of basically crunching big data with thousands and thousands of clients out there has been around for a long time, but it seems like you guys have come up with a pretty great way to actually monetize that by using an altcoin. So kind of just wanted to, I guess, have you walk us through, I guess, what Gridcoin is and how you became involved and all that good stuff. And yeah.
yeah, sure. Um, I got involved kind of by accident. My background is in modeling and finance. I've spent about 12 years in finance and banking, doing risk analysis and that sort of thing. So I was really interested in distributed compute type applications to begin with, because of all the stochastic modeling, those types of things like that we have to do. And I kind of stumbled across Gridcoin and really liked the concept. And a lot of you have probably heard of SETI and Boink at some point in the past. Maybe you got involved with it, maybe you didn't. But it's just basically a massive distributed network. And the founder of Gridcoin, the lead dev, he was really I think visionary in putting Boink together with a cryptocurrency. The first iteration wasn't that great, but as I'll kind of go through here, you can kind of see that over time it's become better and better and more efficient. And another thing, a lot of people just haven't heard about us, and we've been around for 2 years. There's not a lot of altcoins that.
Which is a long time in this area.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Roy, I can't see your screen. It just looks like a gray. I don't know if
Okay.
you have anything up or not yet.
Not yet, but I
Oh,
do
okay.
now.
There we go.
So one of the major criticisms of Bitcoin or proof of work in general are all those hashes are pretty much arbitrary, and the solutions are largely discarded. That process is it takes a lot of heat, takes a lot of electricity, and even with the more efficient ASICs, we really haven't solved the electricity problem. And as a consequence, a lot of things have actually been centralized as the hardware has become more and more specialized. And so we kind of saw that as a problem. There have been several potential solutions. Primecoin and Namecoin, they tried to make a useful hash. Purecoin and NXT, they took an approach of just going with lower energy. If I lose you guys, my battery is about to die on my headset, so I'll have to come back on another computer. But
Okay, no problem.
and then as far as there were some other ideas out there about compensating for other types of work. So Curecoin and Folding Coin, which both came after Gridcoin, they use a centralized credit checking and distribution process. So it's more of a, we're going to pay a cryptocurrency rather than trying to make the whole entire ecosystem distributed. So Gridcoin came out of a desire to solve real-world problems. But to understand Gridcoin, you really have to know a little bit about BOINC. And like I said before, it's an open source distributed compute wrapper that anybody can use. It allows a computer to kind of compute problems while it's sitting idle. Is kind of the idea.
So now sorry for interjecting.
No problem.
Was BOINC around prior to Gridcoin?
Yes, it was around for 10 years, and it was almost entirely, well, it was entirely volunteer-based. So universities, research institutions, places like that use BOINC to allow citizens to contribute to their projects. And they do all kinds of things. They do modeling of climate change, folding of proteins. They're doing a 3D mapping of the Milky Way. They're looking for, cures like Ebola and cancer. Some of the results that have kind of come out of BOINC are new solar panel materials that are more efficient. So, like, this is real science, and it's and real results. And there's even a project, SETI. I mentioned that earlier. It's the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So you can go look for ET. That's, some people like that. I think but all this was all volunteer before Gridcoin. So what Gridcoin did is they added Bitcoin and BOINC together, and now we can compensate the volunteers for the work that they do for science. So Gridcoin came about in October 2013. It had an in-wallet miner, and it was connected to BOINC. It was kind of a weird, like, hybrid. I mean, it used proof of work, it had script, and then, so basically your GPU ran and helped secure the network. The CPU contributed to BOINC. Then came 1.1. There was an increase in efficiency. Basically what happened was that CPU mining was added, and so half of the time the script is being used, half of the time the CPU mining is being used. That increased the efficiency quite a bit. And we also had Finance Alpha, which is a commercial BOINC project, and that was launched basically as a proof of concept for machine learning, and we were using it for equity and option pricing, trying to find inefficiencies in the market and work with a lot of options. So this is how the network looked after that. Half of the time was BOINCing on your CPU, half the time was on your GPU, and it just kind of switched back and forth between blocks. As script ASICs came out, we started asking ourselves, well, why are we still using proof of work? So we explored some of the options. We made a lot of discussions, and basically what we came up with was Gridcoin 2.0, which is the current version that a lot of you will see out there right now. It's a proof of research is what we kind of decided to call it. It decreased the CPU load to run the wallet to less than 5%. And in order to do this, we had to convert the blockchain from proof of work to proof of research. It took about 6 months, and for each proof of work coin that was burned, 10 new research coins were issued on the new blockchain. So now it looks a little bit more like this. you contribute with your Android, your GPU, your CPU, your Raspberry Pi. There's even a couple projects out there that support PlayStation, ASIC hardware.
Yeah, I
It
think I
all,
just saw somebody started a Kickstarter for like a Boink Raspberry
yes,
Pi. That looks
yeah.
pretty cool.
And so all of this can kind of go to the same spot, and then the network figures out how much you're owed, and then it pays you in Gridcoin based on how much you contribute to Boink. And none of these things have to be necessarily attached to your wallet. Your wallet can be separate. So you get even more efficiency if you've got multiple machines running. You only need to have your wallet running on one machine. So this kind of works a little bit like a paper share pool now. Now, I like this chart because it shows the timeline of how much was contributed to Boink over the last couple of years, and it highlights some of the improvements each version of the coin. So when we launched, we went for a while, and if this is a logarithmic scale, you'd see that there would be a little bit of an increase over time as we added more and more researchers. But when version 1.1 came along, you can see we had a little bit of a pop, and that was because of an efficiency gain. And then when 2.0 came along, we had another little pop, but we still had the conversion period, so we still were running that old proof of work blockchain. You can see at the end of that period, we had this explosion in credits. That is all of those hashes that were going into thin air, all of a sudden being dedicated to doing real scientific work.
That's pretty awesome.
What date is that?
So we finalized the proof of work blockchain in mid-April. I can't remember the exact date, but it was around April that the old chain was retired. So
I'm just noting it on my chart for later reference.
okay. After we realized, after we got 2.0 out, we started thinking about.
Uh-oh, I think we might have lost him.
Headset died.
The day the music
Yeah.
died.
Ooh.
Well,
why don't we, I mean, I guess, I don't know how long it's going to take him to get back.
Do you want to take a look at the chart for a minute? And then...
Well, I think Brian had a couple questions for him in regards to the chart, so it might be helpful to have him on. But
okay.
hold on, I think he's still there. It's just his headset's died. That's all.
yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what. Why don't we?
We could do another coin, TA, and then come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably going to take him 5 minutes or so.
Actually, you know what? Why don't we just review the TA? I guess he can't see my text chat there in the text box. But anyway, Roy, if you can hear me, just pop on your other computer, and as soon as you get back, we'll just pick right up, okay? So, actually, this is an interesting segue. So this was just basically about where he said where the 2.0 was launched, right in here? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think he said around March, April. Yep.
Yeah.
That would be back here.
Yeah, so I wonder if it wasn't even listed on Bittrex until 2.0 was out, because it looks like that's when the charts start.
Could be. Let's see, GRC. And now because of this. Oh, look at this! Isn't this interesting? What the heck's going on here?
That we brought that up. When we looked at this last time, we brought that up, and somebody left a comment on our video, and they said that was due to the mandatory upgrade. Said they ended up with a month of forks and headaches, and all markets were frozen for a month or so. So I assume that was probably switching over from 1.1 to 2.0, but
could be. Interesting how that's March, April, and then on Polo here it didn't kick back in until the middle of July or so.
That's got to be it.
And then what's the CCEX? What's the name of CCEX?
I don't know. We just say CSEX.
Okay.
It's
wow, look at this.
-cex.com.
All right. Look how it came out. Here's February and then March. Whoosh. So this must be when they did that That 10 for 1, do we call that a hard fork?
Well, I don't know. Technically, I think
It's almost
yes,
like a
but
new coin, basically.
yeah, I mean, I think it
It's a
was a
different
fork.
blockchain.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a different
So I guess when we look at the chart, you know me, right? What's my favorite letter of the alphabet?
I would have to
Um,
go with W.
no,
Yeah, way to
no way it's an
go!
M.
You guys do know me. Yay! So we can see, basically this thing stopped making lower lows and then started putting in, our W's, and actually kind of a cute one in there, and started moving up here, right? So it looks to me like this is the area when, if you were trading this, right? You would really want to be really interested. I think I talked about this last week. And it just looks to me like the market sure likes this story. Just keeps surging. Now, does this, you guys have heard me say, and if we go back to the Bitterix chart, look at the size of this crazy wick. I mean, do you see how the market is actually, it kind of stalled right here a bit. You see that? And it kind of asked itself, do I really want to go into this wick? Do I really want to do this? And right now it's saying, yes, I do, right? And this, look how big this wick goes. It goes all the way up to here. Capital gains wise, wow, there's some serious money that could be made there. And the other thing that I would mention is, have you guys ever heard me say volumes speak volumes?
I believe so.
Right. If we had simply, and the audience, you watching this, right? If you had just simply said, you know what, I want to be a bull, but I want to see that there are, a lot of buyers coming into the market. Look how on this day in particular, right here, you see how it tried to break out and then it came back down, and then the buyers just came in and said, buy, buy, right? And just blasted it out here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was this day. This was one hell of a battle in here, right? I wouldn't even be surprised if there were some, smart guys who were actually shorting this, right? And there's a big old stop run, ching, 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 right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I wonder if this is one of the shortable markets. Actually,
Yeah, who knows?
I'm gonna
Maybe
take a
yes.
look.
And this is a good example of I'm just gonna simply ride on these guys' coattails, and you can see how buying interest is kind of trailing off here as price sort of moves away from this level. I suppose anybody who wants to try and get into this thing now, just as a trade, what a coincidence. There is that original level that launched this, and here is our quote-unquote reload zone, eh?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, it doesn't look like you can short GRC on Polo. So.
Okay. All right. So, if you are, watching this and you're listening to the presentation and you're kind of like, I kind of want to get in on this story. Maybe hunt for, bullish structure through this pullback zone, kind of like how it did in here. And if this is still a bull, then maybe you can grab some in here and risk against these lows. But that's about the best sort of like trade scenario. And, this is just me as a value hunter. Hopefully you guys can appreciate that, I should have been getting interested here. And there were a number of the marijuana coins that I tried to get in, but I just simply missed. Same sort of thing. I think after our show last week, I said, okay, fine, I'll throw my stink bid in here. But this market it's saying, too bad, Brian, you missed it. I'm heading up. And the thing is, as a disciplined trader, I just have to say, well, I've missed the trade, and good luck to the rest of the community that did get in. Hope you make lots of money, but I can't chase this here. Right? It sucks, but that's a trader's life, eh?
Yeah.
How are we doing with Roy? Did Roy make it back?
I don't know.
Great story. So what is all this worth? That's an interesting.
It looks like he's been going through his presentation. Maybe he doesn't realize.
Yeah, that would suck.
Like that.
Maybe you. He was on the Google chat, right? Maybe you can send him a message over
No, he
there or
wasn't.
something.
I sent him a message on Twitter, so I don't know if
Oh,
he
okay.
did it
All
or not.
right.
But
Well, we'll see how it goes.
we'll
We
see.
got a, sure got a nice half presentation though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever, and it's interesting because me as I am a pseudo computer nerd, I suppose, in that I was on the internet back in the early '90s on my old Apple Macintosh. My what was it? It was anyway. That's here nor there.
Apple
And
IIe.
I actually had this SETI software running on my computer.
Wow.
So, do you guys remember doing that? That
Yeah,
was
I never did it, but I knew of it way
Yeah,
back in the
that was a
day.
big
Yeah.
fad back last before the turn of the century, right? So I actually did that, and what's fascinating is, if I understand correctly, now if I do it, I'll actually get paid to do it.
Yep. So did you find anything?
No, well, I mean that if I understand, it's kind of like the
No,
blockchain.
you didn't find any aliens, I mean?
No, well, not that I'm aware of. They didn't let me know. All you do is your computer sits there, right, and it crunches numbers, but you really have no idea what it is you're even analyzing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just fascinating that you can actually do it now and get paid. And it's the efficiency is very interesting too. And also the thought that you can run just a wallet on one page or on one computer, but then have like a whole bunch of computers all running their software. The what was the name of it again?
Boink.
Boink, right?
Yeah.
And theoretically, they're all making money, right?
hmm Yeah, the
Yeah.
only, and I wanted to ask Roy about this too after his presentation, so I hope he can get back on here. But
Yeah.
I saw somebody in the Slack chat last week they said they were concerned with Gridcoin perhaps, allowing for-profit companies to come in and then use Boink in order to maybe more heavily monetize their research versus another project. So, for example, like if Big Pharma wanted to come in and offer, a higher bounty for a private, chemistry workover, whatever they're going to do. So I wanted to see how Roy could address that. I mean, I tend to think that it's not.
It sounded like that would have to, maybe not. I don't know, because it sounded like they were getting reporting from Boink about output, like
Right.
through API key or something.
Yeah, so that's, I just wanted to hear it from Roy's mouth because I'm not sure how their blockchain really works in terms of rewards. Like, I mean, I assume it's, just like every other, coin out there where it's based on obviously your hash power, hash rate. So we'll see, but hopefully you can
Yeah.
come back on. I guess we could jump into another one, I mean, for the time being.
All right.
I assume he's scrambling and trying to get onto a different computer, so
Okay.
his screen went dark.
He
Why don't
eventually
we?
realized that.
Roy, I don't know if you can
hearing
hear
him.
us. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear us, Roy, but we have the Hangouts chat app open. It's the upper left, the blue thing, so you can type in there if you want to chat with us.
All right. Why don't we? Actually, this is probably. Hey, there he is. Yay! Test. Oh no, that's
That
that's
was me.
you. Type that. Silly me. All right. Why don't we take a little bit of time, talk a little bit about Bitcoin, and maybe when Roy gets back, we can pick up, like we said. You know, how shall we start this? I guess, once upon a time, people that sort of have followed me and watched my videos and stuff on the internet and YouTube and stuff, I've been talking and, I think what we're going to need to do just to put all this into perspective, and I know my partner always says, don't talk about the past, talk about the future, but to fully understand and appreciate this, we got to talk a little bit about the past. So let's go. Stamp is usually a good one, right? For a nice simple. Where is that? A BTS? That would be that,
Yep.
right? All right. And let's go one day. All right. So 2015, guys. Really, I've been saying this all year. I don't really see it as the breakout year for Bitcoin. I kind of thought 2015 would be a bit of a sideways market, and really, to all intents and purposes, that's what it's become, right? I might argue that for us to actually get into the next bull, we really need to go through a period like this, right, where we just got to calm down. This has just been a mess here, right, all the way down here, right? So to stop this and sort of get people to stop thinking about, oh, Bitcoin just keeps going down in price, we got to go into a period where it's just going to calm down. Things like the U.S. market coming online, I think, is going to help Bitcoin a lot. We can sort of feel the transition, the sort of adoption. One of my site members put out a really cool news release from one of these sites. There's one of these killer apps that's coming. I don't know whether you guys saw my, and by all means, it's not a bad idea, viewers, if you are interested. Probably a good idea just to follow me on Twitter at CRInvestor. It's pretty simple. And then that way, as I tweet this stuff out through the day, you can keep an up on it. I thought this was really interesting here. We're starting to develop the ecosystem here where the consumer Joe Sixpack is going to use Bitcoin and not even realize they're using it.
Yeah, I saw you posted that, but I didn't have a chance to read it yet.
Yeah, really.
We use BitPay for Coinigy subscription payments and that kind of stuff, and it's actually worked pretty well for us. So
yeah. The interesting thing is I used to go to my local grocer and say, how much is the banks charging you for this little handheld device to take Interact payments? And he'd say, oh, those bastards are charging blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, wouldn't it be nice if you could use Bitcoin and not have to pay those fees? And he said, I'd do it in a minute. And lo and behold, here it finally is coming. So I'm really excited. The future, we've been waiting for a year or so for these killer apps, and it looks to me like we're finally laying the groundwork for this stuff to really kick in. So that's a real positive. And I kind of look at Bitcoin like this has been kind of a cleanup year, or cleaning up the market. Now, having said that, right, traders got to trade, right? We got to make some money, got to make the bacon. And so that means that, you got to basically take setups as they come along. And if you're trading, for a living, you just got to trade, right? Long-term investors, I think Bitcoin's still kind of a sideways story. But, that doesn't mean we can't take advantage of situations as they come along. And what I found interesting was I really tried to work with one Bitcoin exchange over the past year, and it just wasn't going anywhere for me, and it really drove me nuts. A couple of site members, and, I don't know whether this is an endorsement or not, but they had suggested, Brian, you like to trade, go take a look at the OKCoin futures market. I think you might like their structure. And I actually did, and I'm starting to trade, and I'm taking setups, and we're actually making a bit of money now. So I'm feeling pretty good about my Bitcoin trading now. We sort of got started on OK somewhere up in this area here. And so this is sort of where I'll start my story for you guys. So, on a daily basis, if I see a setup, basically I have a trading plan that all my students are well aware of, and really I want to, demonstrate best practices, so I'm just simply following my trading plan. We had a nice little rally off of these lows, and hopefully you guys can see this was just a big jump. Can you guys see that? Boom. Right? Now, usually in the market, these are not isolated events, right? Usually, actually, when you get a big rally like this is only half the move. And really the question is, the market has to reload. You guys have heard me use that term before, right?
Yep.
So the guys, if this is half the move, the guys that bought down here, they're going to be taking profits in here, and sadly, the people that FOMO buy, they're usually the ones that are buying up here. And, if stops were triggered, a lot of this might have been stop run activity. Again, the weak hands buying, the ironically enough, the smart hands, whoever driving the market, they're selling and taking profits. But where would they most likely, reload for, a continuation of this move, if this is only half of the move? You guys have probably heard me talk about the ABCD pattern. This is a fairly common harmonic concept. And, there's our A to B. And all we're going to do is we're just going to identify where the market eventually has come down to. And it looks like that's at that area. And then we're just going to simply draw a a equidistant line going the other direction, like so. So what ends up happening really is we just simply clone this first measured move off of the lows, and that should give us an upside target. Isn't that interesting how basically the market went right up into that window there, right? Look at that. Up and then fail. So coming out of this initial burst, I noticed the market put in a half-decent little market structure bottom here. Let's see if we go down to 2 hour. Might see a little better. I think we have. Did somebody come back into the room here?
Yes, I did.
Oh, fantastic! So let me just finish this trade, and then I'll hand the staff back off to you. Okay. This consolidation, you can see price came down, then rallied away, then came back down, tested this low, and then turned up. Can you guys see the W?
Mm-hmm.
Right, down, up, down, breakout.
Yep.
Hopefully you can see that.
All right.
Right, and so this is my trading plan, and this is also a bot. We won't get into the bot right now, but basically the same levels. So I took this trade and just simply risked to new lows and was looking for a 2-to-1 risk reward. And what's really interesting about this trade is you guys can see how the market made me feel good. I was like, woohoo, profits, I'm so smart, right? And then the market made me look like a monkey, right? Uh-oh, losses, right? But here's the key about the W's, right, is technically our trade setup says that we're going to buy a break out of the middle of the W and we're going to risk down to a break of the W. And notice how the market came down, right, tested, and then launched itself higher. You see that?
Yeah, that looks like a W right in the middle of your 2-to-1 there.
Right. Well, even there's a W, right? And now we got this W, right? There are lots of W's all over the place here. The point of the matter here is that W is in my trading plan, and as traders, this is a tough part about life, right? And tough part about trading. Setup comes in, really you're best to just take the setup and live with the results, right? And book the trade. And if this fails, and let's say you do a number of these trades and it keeps failing, well then you can go back and review whether the setup was valid and whether you really should have taken the trade. In this case, the setup was valid. I took the trade, and I had to have a world of discipline not to do anything in here. You see that? That's really the message out of this, is that a lot of people will simply walk away, maybe take a marginal profit or take a marginal loss, right? Not risking to the original double bottom, and then they'll turn around a few hours later and they'll see this and they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I tinkered. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I had to simply wait for my 2-to-1 risk-reward level. This took a world of discipline to just ignore all the negativity, and trust me, everybody and their brother was saying this thing was going down. And I just simply had to stick to my guns. And this was tough. And actually, it was interesting. I went out with my son, nice afternoon, and I came back to the computer, turned on the screen, and price was up here. Can you imagine how elated I was when I saw that? So that's trade one of us sort of getting us going. We'll talk next about the next setup that came in after our presenter is done.
Cool.
All right.
So we can
Hey,
bring it back
Roy,
to Roy.
welcome back.
Can you guys hear me very well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
it's decent.
Okay, decent. I hope I'm at the spot where I was when I lost audio.
Can you go back and just do one slide before, just to pick us up kind of where you had left off?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe go back in your slides until we see what we remembered. Yeah, okay, we
Oh,
did
yeah,
that one.
good.
And remember, I asked you about what date that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that
Okay.
says that your screen there says what is that? January 2015 and then March 2015. Is that correct? Where that yellow bubble is?
Uh,
Yeah, March is
so
that first big bar.
yeah, so we launched 2.0 in October of 2014,
All right.
and then the chain ended April. I can't remember. I want to say like April 6th or something like that of 2015.
Yeah, and did you hear us when we lost your audio? We pulled up some charts, and I think was it Cripsy has just a monster hole in the chart right then. Was it Cripsy or was it Polo? I can't remember.
Yeah, we don't.
Polonius.
Yeah, we don't trade in at Cripsy. We've traded at Polo. We started it with CSEX, and I don't even know how you guys pronounce that, but that's how I do.
Us
Yeah,
too.
we say C-sex.
Okay.
Okay. I said, I'm not going to touch that.
Yeah. So there in Polo, during the 1.0 and 1.1 stages, then when we had that conversion, each exchange kind of took it at a different pace. C6 was the first one, and they actually carried both chains. Polo, they were like at the very end, and that's that hole that you see and that 10-to-1 split is why you see a massive it drops by a factor of 10.
Okay, so that just explains. Oh, am I muted? Yeah, no. So that
No.
just explains why Polo looks the way it does. And that was sort of the big thing. I got a couple other questions, but why don't you carry on with your presentation and I'll shut the hell up.
So we were talking about decentralizing everything, and that's really what this is about. We had centralized credit checking, and that was a major problem for a lot of people. They wanted it to be decentralized, and for good reason. And we took that and we started thinking about decentralizing other things. And our solution was a distributed autonomous organization. And during phase one, we implemented on-chain block voting. We implemented project selection. So the projects that can be are approved basically for getting credit, Gridcoin credit for. That's all through a voting process now. We have contracts. We have a.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Here I go again. Sorry.
No,
Will
no,
even said something about that.
Yeah,
That was a big
that's-
question.
Yeah,
about-
that pretty much addresses, what I was concerned about. I mean, I know, so I mentioned this when you were gone, Roy, but I've seen some chatter out there, people saying, well, what's to stop big pharma from just coming in here and, saying they're going to give more credit to people who choose their project versus other projects, and taking over the altruistic purposes and instead using it for strictly capitalist purposes, I guess.
That's through the project selection. So you're absolutely right. If we didn't limit what projects you got credit for, that would be a problem. And the cool thing is, by having the DAO, everybody has a voice. If you own Gridcoin, if you are a researcher, your voting share is weighted based on how much you contribute to the network. And it's worked really well so far. We're also using like the ticket system and the FAQ system as a way to crowdsource some knowledge, and those are proof of concepts right now, but we're definitely going to be making those better in the future. So the neural network is how we were able to get decentralized credit checking. So we used a service basically that compiled all the credits for us, and there was you know, there were some people that were concerned about the fact that it was centralized. And so now each of our nodes can actually go out and go to the individual project sites, get the credit themselves. It can't be manipulated. It's all inside of our network. And then it's consensus based, so as more and more gather all of the credits and they check against each other and make sure that nobody's lying, and we have a really nice credit system that way. So the neural network can actually be used for a lot of things, and we just used it for that credit checking to start off with. It could be used for determining the price of an asset in the past. It could be used for determining the location of an earthquake based on a bunch of sensor input or something like that. I see it being used to help administer the DAO in the future. Okay, so
say that one more time. I just want. Did you say DAO?
Yeah, distributed autonomous organization. So
it's self-reinforcing. Is that what?
Yeah, it's basically. I mean, some people also call it DAC, like digitally autonomous corporation. It basically means an autonomous system that really doesn't rely on, one or two people, right?
Yeah. It's that so that the network makes decisions and they're enforced by machine code.
Yeah, and that's really the beauty, and I've said this for a long time. I mean, that's really the beauty of the blockchain and just altcoins in general. And I've really been waiting to see some altcoins really come out, with true DAO and DAC principles. I mean, I know BitShares is kind of working towards that as well. So yeah, so it's definitely refreshing to see, and it's in terms of just moving this whole space forward too. As opposed to just having more people launching Litecoin clones and this and that, actually trying to do something with the blockchain and making it useful. So
can I ask a question?
You guys.
Yeah.
So everybody's working away, and when you were gone, we were sort of talking about the SETI experiment, because I kind of participated that way back when. And as you participate in these monster calculations, if I understand you correctly, you're being credited with Gridcoins as you sort of contribute to this big problem that's being solved. What do you do with the Gridcoins once you got them? Like, what's the benefit of owning a Gridcoin?
Well, right now, about all you can do with it is trade it. And that's unfortunate, and we're working on that. That's something for the future.
Okay. So aside from what you can do now, you've got awesome plans for the future. I mean, give us an ideas. Like, what would you ideally like to do with them?
So this slide actually that's a perfect question for this slide. So the Boeing finance project is basically taking machine learning and applying it to all kinds of equities and option analysis. And the results, we had some initial results from the first round, and it performed very, very well because it found some inefficiencies. There were some arbitrage opportunities, things like that it could find. This is just like massive data mining. So we're exploring ways to monetize the results. It might be a subscription service. We had talked about doing like a closed-end fund or something like that. But there's some regulatory questions around what would actually be available and wouldn't get everybody in trouble. I want to stay on these sides of the bars. So there's still some questions out there of that. But a subscription service would actually give you, like you would pay in Gridcoin. That gives you something to actually, you have to buy it in order to get access to the information that we're producing. Mm-hmm. Another idea that I think has a lot of traction and could become something in the future is creating a commercial Boeing project. And it wouldn't be on the approved project list, but basically a company, Big Pharma for instance, can come in and they can put a bounty on their work units. And so you essentially crunch your work units, and you send it to them, they verify it, and they send you the Gridcoin. And that would be a really interesting mechanism for price discovery, because you're getting, like, they're having to buy the Gridcoin, and then they're paying directly for compute time.
Yeah. Well, so I can understand, the interesting thing is when Will mentioned the big pharma, I was kind of like, well, wouldn't it be a benefit to you guys to almost have these companies come to you and almost get into a bidding war for your services?
Yes, absolutely. So that way we can keep the humanitarian side, the volunteer side, with the approved projects, and we can also have the commercial side that's bidding up the services and bidding up access to the network, having access to this massive scale. I mean, if you can imagine, it's a giant supercomputer network, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited for your guys' future. I hope you're long. I personally have kicked around the idea of floating some sort of cryptocurrency for students of my services to pay me in the form of the currency, because then that way it almost gets a bid for your currency. So I like the fact that you can actually require companies that come to you that want access to your massive supercomputer network, and they have to pay you in your currency, right?
Right.
I think that's a great idea. That basically you might even create futures markets and stuff on people that basically want to lock up your network's capability going out maybe months and years down the road. So yeah, I mean, the future's so bright here, man. I'm really excited for you guys.
Awesome. Well, we're full of ideas and we're full of energy. It's a growing community. It's super active, and it's actually been a pretty wild ride the last couple of years. But
Yeah.
So this right here, I just want to mention a couple things about. So we've got some changes that are coming at the end of October. We have a current reward system that's factor based, and there's a cap, and so this was a problem. It wasn't a problem when we had smaller researchers, but it's a problem now that we have more researchers, and it doesn't scale to infinity. If you only have so many blocks that are available in a day to pay everybody. As long as you have more blocks than researchers, everything's golden. But when you get too many researchers, then you don't have enough blocks. Not everybody's getting paid, and we have a problem. And we also had, because there's a cap, there was a limit to the amount of income, and that was kind of a negative thing people didn't like as well. So we're moving later in this month to a contribution share-based reward. If you earn, or if you crunch, say, 1% of all the work units in the network, you're going to get paid 1% of the coins that are for that day. So it's going to be much more scalable, and it's contribution share based, and we think it's a more fair way of distributing the rewards. So it's called Research Age, and it works a lot like the proof of stake, where if you haven't been paid in a while and you're owed more than somebody else, you're more likely to get the next block paid next. We have up to a 6-month look back, and like I said, it's coming soon.
So your payout is contingent on your number getting up to the point of 1 block? Did I hear that correctly?
Right, sort of. So, so right now, because our network grew so much in such a short period of time in the last few months, it used to be, a lot of blocks were coming in around here. Well, now, because you're paid, the person owed the most is paid first, and they pay up to the block cap. we're starting to see some of the small guys not getting paid, and we don't want that. So this contribution share, if you crunch, a tenth of a percent, you would get a tenth of the coins for that day, and based on the order, just like proof of stake, if based on the order of who was paid when and how old how long it's been since you were paid, that changes the probability of when you'll get paid next.
It seems like a pretty fair distribution metric.
Is it? Is that? I mean, again, this is stock trader commodities.
Yeah.
I'm not crypto expert here, so I mean, just as an outsider, when I hear that, all I heard was, "You're going to do a whole bunch of work for us, and if you're a really small fish, well, you're just going to have to wait a while till you get paid." Is that sort of the common way of doing things in crypto land?
It kind of has to be that way for a payment mechanism that fits everything within the chain.
Okay. It's just a stupid guy asking a stupid question.
Well, actually, it's a really good question. It's one that we've struggled with, and that's, when we were back here, and when we were a lot smaller, it was easy for anybody to get paid, and you usually got paid multiple times a day. If you're one of these guys that were up toward the top, you're paid multiple times a day. But these guys down here, maybe got one every day or two, but they're paid based on the work they do, not on the probability of their machine finding a block. That's the thing with proof of work. If you have the fastest machine and it's a race, whoever can get to that block the fastest wins. Well, this isn't about the fastest. It's about your turn in line, and
I think that's fair. Anyway, I think you've explained it well, and I'm sure our audience is much smarter than I am at this stuff, so I think they understood exactly what you said.
Perfect.
Cool.
So yeah, we've got a lot of things on the docket, if you will. And we've talked about them, so I'm not going to go over too much of that. And it comes down to what's it worth. I don't know. What's the cure to cancer worth? I think we're doing real work. And
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is there any way you could get this linked to like the university system, and people could literally use the Gridcoin like to pay for tuition and stuff like that?
Eventually, absolutely, just like Bitcoin. I mean, it is a cryptocurrency. It's
right. I guess I'm just, because you have this computer network and people in the university system might, be especially interested in, tackling some of these really, really difficult big problems. It just seems logical to me, like thinking of what's a cool way you could spend Gridcoins. I think it would be, a huge sales effort if you could somehow tie it into the education system where you could actually use the Gridcoins to help, tuition costs. That's just, again, me talking out of nowhere.
Maybe at least at Berkeley, since you guys are driving so much more cooperation and participation within their network.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Plus, at Berkeley?
I don't know if you've noticed, but
Berkeley runs Point.
Oh, well, there you go. Damn. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about, right? So, anyway, sorry, Will, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just saying textbooks are pretty expensive, so a lot of people would like to pay for part of that with Gridcoin.
Exactly. All right.
There you go.
All right, well, thank you very much. From my perspective, thank you. I mean, I do have a couple questions about the chart. I don't know whether you can help us with that.
Yeah, I probably can.
Can? Okay, well, let's give it a shot, see what happens. When I just pull up a chart of GRC off, and it's interesting with all of the crypto exchange issues going on right now. I kind of, for my audience, people that are sort of new to crypto, it feels to me like Bittrex is sort of like the senior kid on the block these days. And so I kind of knee-jerk reaction have been leaning towards Bittrex of late, and I kind of want to let the dust settle. I'm not quite sure. What Will said tonight about Cripsy is fascinating. And ironically enough, I often say you can't write better fiction than reality. If the whole thing turns out to be a big smear campaign, it wouldn't surprise me. But looking at the price chart off of Bittrex, I just had a couple questions. I guess the first question is, and I don't know whether you can help me with this or not, but we'll just see. What happened here the first week of July, I guess right after the July 4th weekend holiday, that went on through almost the entire month of July?
That's when we pulled the switch on the neural network and we opened up. We went from the centralized credit checking to decentralized credit checking, and we had to have the market frozen during that time because there was just too much going on.
Okay, so in stock market land, we actually, it's interesting. There's an old saying in the market that says, if the exchange halts your company, you're screwed. But if the company halts trading in the company, that's usually a really good sign. So I'm hearing here that you, the company or the organization, were the one that halted trading there. Is that correct?
Not entirely, but we worked really closely with. They knew that it was coming. We worked closely with all the exchanges. They knew that there was going to be a time period where this chain would be less stable, and we worked with them to make sure that when they opened back up, that they had a stable product and they didn't have to worry about losses and that sort of thing.
How did people that were long your story from here, let's say, how did they feel through this period?
There were some anxious moments. If you go back to the forum and you look, you can tell. I mean, there was a lot going on, and it took a while to get things stable.
All right. And now my follow-up question is, what happened this date? Whatever happened this date, this is, in my opinion, where the stock broke out, and that was August 7th. What happened on August 7th?
Frankly, I don't know. I remember that day because volume went from almost nothing to what was that, 23 Bitcoin?
533,000 coins traded on this day here, yeah.
So I mean, it was like a shot across the bow. It took everybody by surprise. I really, honestly, somebody found us, I guess, and decided that, I don't know.
I do believe so. That's cool. I mean, it's always.
They knew what they were doing, I guess, in hindsight.
I beg your pardon?
They knew what they were doing, I guess, in hindsight.
Well, you often hear me talk about how the smart money breaks stocks out, right? Or, coins or whatever. And we often see this bottoming pattern. And really, I would actually argue whoever's driving this story, this is the driver's seat right here. So, viewers, and Roy probably doesn't want to hear this, but if the coin does come back down, clearly this is the fundamental catalyst that started whatever rally this is here. And clearly here, this is the point of control, in my opinion. So really interesting, and I just kind of wanted to ask you. Now,
I actually agree with you. When that happened, I had a feeling, and then when we had that second breakout, I don't know, was it about a month later? That confirmed my suspicions, and
yeah.
And
cool.
then we had some of the news and things like that kind of pile on, and we've had really good results with the testing for the 2.0, the research age. So I think it's just kind of been a story that's kind of taken its own life.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me that the public is, probably gonna, you're probably, like here you are on a web show, right, talking about your coin. My hunch is, as this keeps going parabolic like this, you're going to get more and more of the public's attention. I just out of curiosity, is that financial market modeling? I'm just going to throw this out there. Is it anything like this Ruby? Are you familiar with Ruby?
I actually am not familiar with that now.
All right. I got the impression that these guys are running some sort of algo, and look at what the market's done to them. You see that?
Wow. Yeah.
So, maybe to a certain degree, the market has caught wind to your financial services algorithm. Maybe that was what launched, got whoever this guy was here involved. Could be. Could very easily be, right? All right, and then, this again is gnarly old trader, stock market guy, new to crypto, kind of want to understand this. Can you, and maybe you can explain this, maybe you can't, but can you kind of, as a total noob to this, somebody who looks at this chart and sees this, can you at all give our viewers some sort of context of what happened here when you sort of first came on to Bittrex?
Yeah, so we see, I've done some alt trading myself, and and like I said, I was in the financial services industry for 12 years. So the altcoin world is so weird, especially when you have a Bitcoin come onto a market. I mean, you'll see massive volume, you'll see stupid bids that are just completely out of context. And I think that's what happened here. If I remember right, the pre-split coin was trading at about 8,000. And somebody placed a bid right at 8,000, not realizing or thinking that nobody would notice, or I don't know. They put a bid there at 8,000, and somebody raced, and they got a 10x
just whacked
return.
them, eh?
Yeah.
Right.
Interestingly enough, that's the high. I thought, for whatever reason, I thought that was the open, but that's not the case. It looks like, somebody just
in this
fat-fingered
case.
that.
Now, the interesting
actually,
thing is, did it opened here? So then that must have mean that there were no offers here.
Right. Yeah, because it was all, we already had a well-established price right around 800. Is the equivalent of 800 Satoshi. So.
Hey, so that sounds to me like it was just a good old-fashioned fat finger.
Yep.
Okay. I'm always curious because I've watched some of these. And, an outsider looking at this goes, what on earth happened here?
Yeah, we see that a lot on Bittrex, on charts, on Bittrex especially. For whatever reason, there'll be one huge bid on the first bar.
Yeah.
So, and we're always, we're compiling this data, and we're always curious as to the reason behind it. We know that it's legit because we got it, from Bittrex, and our systems are reliable, but always interesting.
Yeah, and you never, like some of these coins, when they do this is, and this often is the case, right? We have to go through a meltdown sort of cleanup. In fact, that ETH is kind of doing this right now, right? And it's probably going to have to put in one of these consolidation periods before it can start launching too. Right? So I'm always curious. I like to ask people, just can you tell me a little bit about what happened here? So thank you very much for being candid about that. It's cool.
You bet.
All right, I think I'm done. Next witness.
Yeah, thanks so much, Roy. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a great presentation.
Cool. Well, on that note, I think we can probably wrap it up. We're getting close to our, hour and a half here, so.
Are we? We only got a little smidge of
suspense for the rest of those coins.
Oh, those poor people. And we had a couple. There was one that you had to buy today.
Which one was that?
I'm just kidding. It's GRC, obviously.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. All right. Well, if anybody who had asked for a coin and I had put a chart together, if you want to get back to me, DM me on Twitter or whatever. I'll be more than happy to give you my 2 cents. And by all means, I think this was a great investment of our time tonight. Thank you so much, Roy. That was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for
We
having
got a
me.
little bit of Bitcoin in there, so
Oh yeah,
next
there's
week,
a smattering of other things.
but I'm not complaining. I had a lot of fun. And I actually learned a few things tonight. So thank you very much, guys.
Yeah,
There you
good
go.
stuff. Well,
Thank
cool. I
you.
guess we can wrap things up on that note. Everybody who's watching, don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps us out. And don't forget to check out Coinigy.com for everything you've seen tonight in terms of high definition charting and trading on multiple exchanges. And as mentioned, we will have Gemini tomorrow morning. So looking forward to that. And then don't forget to check out therationalinvestor.co, and I'll let Brian say a few words about that.
With the boys, man, they are working so hard. Julian couldn't even make tonight because they're literally every free moment they have, they're working on the site. It's interesting. We have a new site that's coming out here, so it's interesting, Roy, that you mentioned that you're working on financial services industry and an engine, right? In essence, that's what the boys are doing too. So we're super stoked about the algo that we're rolling out here. Totally awesome, man. It's so cool, but you'll have to wait for that. Current term is underway. Students are doing fantastic. I really see a lot of nice hard work from people, so it shows to me that they really are serious and dedicated and really want to learn. By all means, if you're watching and you are curious to learn how to build trading plans and how do you construct setups and how do you get in touch with your own personal feelings and dealing with emotion and trading, by all means, feel free to get in contact with me. And we'll see whether we can get you pointed in a good direction. Therationalinvestor.co, as Will said. And as always, I have an absolute great time with you guys, and it's a real privilege for me to work with such professionals. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you guys here tonight.
Hey, likewise, right back
Right
at you,
back.
Brian. Yep, so thanks a lot, guys. Don't forget to check us out again in 2 weeks. Same time, 10 p.m. Eastern, 2 weeks from now, and we'll see you then. Signing off.
Take care.
Good night.